Samaitiki Gemara in Megillah Daf Lamed Beis, where the Gemara tells us as follows: the subject of today's shir, B'siyatu Dishmaya. The Gemara Megillah Lamed Beis says, "Shoylim v'doshim hilchos chag b'chag, hilchos atzeres ba'atzeres," which the Maisa the Gemara learns, Shulchan Aruch Paskins Halacha Maisa, that the Inyan is before every Yom Tov you have to know the halachas of the Yom Tov, which is why specifically Pesach, for example, which is why a person needs a lot of time before Pesach, because Pesach, of course, there's tons and tons of halachas that a person has to know. Mishnah Berurah brings a Vilna Gaon that says when it comes to the Yom Tov of Shavuos, so there we can already start from Rosh Chodesh Sivan tomorrow night. Be'ez Hashem, I think so, right? Tomorrow night, Ba'aleinu L'Toiva should be Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which means we're holding by almost Erev Rosh Chodesh, which is we're going to be Mekayim, a Mishnah Berurah, the Vilna Gaon, that says to be Shoylim v'doshin atzeres ba'atzeres, we're going to be learning the halachas. So not only do we have to know, which maybe we'll discuss, the inyanim of cheesecake, how much you have to eat in order to be Yotzeh. This is very, very important. These are very important halachas. But before we even get there, Hilchos Yom Tov. How many times do we not know Hilchos Yom Tov? Do we think we know Hilchos Yom Tov? Or maybe perhaps we have the false impression that Yom Tov you could do whatever you want. Shabbos there's a problem. On Shabbos you've got Malachas Matis. On Yom Tov, no. So that's actually not true. So I want to spend a few minutes. I don't know how much time we're going to have, and we're definitely not going to get through all of Hilchos Yom Tov. One of the very hard things that a person could learn is Hilchos Yom Tov. Another one is actually a Chol HaMoed. But these are very, very hard halachas simply because people don't know them, so they assume that everything's mutter, and then they, oh my gosh, and it's faket, everything's guilty, and that's proven otherwise. That's number one. And number two, there are a lot of differences between Shabbos and Yom Tov. I'm going to try to give you a couple of ideas and I guess starter points, but there's no way in a million years we're going to get to all of Hilchos Yom Tov, because there's so many other shalas that we have to discuss, especially the halachas of Shavuos itself, and especially the inyanim of Shavuos that I really want to get to, the inyan of Kabbalah Satorah, the inyan of Chashivas Satorah. We're going to try to get to some of those things. So let's explain like this. We'll start with the Mordechai Chinuch. The Chinuch says there are two reasons why Malacha is really Asa on Yom Tov. Two reasons. Zut the Chinuch Hazoi Mitzvah Shin Tezvov. He says, number one, we want a person to be free from doing Malacha work, so because that's exactly what that happened in the times of over there, and that's the reason why that we can't do Malacha. Reason number two is the obvious one. When a person when a person doing Malacha, he's busy working, he's busy doing things. We want a person to have time to learn Torah. They asad malacha. Where's the pasuk? Where do we find the makor in the Torah for malacha being either mutter or asa or a bit of both on Yom Tov? And by the way, I always do this on Shavuos time. I'll tell you why, because when it comes to before Pesach, people are busy with Pesach, which is beautiful. They're busy with chometz, they're busy with matzah, they're busy with, is cologne chometz? What about medications? What about dalet kaises? Can I use wine, grape juice? There's a million shilas by Pesach, which is Gavaldi. Who's learning Hilchos Yom Tov? Comes to Sukkos, people are busy with the Heilige Dalet Minim, with the Esuk, the Adasim. They're busy with all of these things. They're busy with the Sukkah, Maimid, Chazanish, all of these things. Who's got time to learn Hilchos Yom Tov? Over here, this is our time to learn Hilchos Yom Tov. Obviously, we should learn it before every Yom Tov, but perhaps if you learn it now, you'll know it for every other Yom Tov. The pasuk over here, Rabbi Yisai, Shmos Beis Tazayin, Kol Malacha Lo Yeh Oseh Bohem, Ach Asher Ya'achal L'chol Nefeshi Levadoy Yaseh Lochem. So loosely translated as, any malacha that is for food preparation is mutter, which is gavaldik. We know that, for example, a person wants to cook on Shabbos Kodesh, that is asa. You cannot cook on Shabbos. You cannot reheat liquid on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do something that looks like cooking on Shabbos. Comes to Yom Tov, it's very different. Yom Tov, it's completely different, because the pasuk says, Matis, that anything that is food related seems to be mutter. The only problem is that it's not 100% true. I'll give you an example. The Gemara Beitzach of Gimel and Beis says, "Ein sadin dogim in a bibim b'Yom Tov." That means if you want to have fresh fish for Yom Tov, don't trap a fish on Yom Tov. Understand? It's oichel nefesh. Oichel nefesh, food preparation. Food preparation should be mutter, right? So why can't I do that? Another example, Beitzah, Beis, right? Koitza, the Gemara says, is also to be done on Yom Tov. Why? I want to pluck an apple from a tree and eat it on Yom Tov. That's called Oichel Nefesh. The Torah says Oichel Nefesh is mutter. Anything that's food related should be mutter on Yom Tov. So is it mutter or is it asa? Which one is it? So major machlokes rishonim. There's Shittas Rashi, there's a Shittas Harosh. We're not going to go down to the machlokes rishonim because that's not our time and that's not our place. However, in this machlokes rishonim, it seems to be the Shulchan Aruch paskins in Top Tzadi Hey that we're machmir for both Shittas Rashi and the Rosh in every situation that we can be lechatchila. So what does that mean? That means like this, and this Rabbi says all Hilchos Yom Tov. I'm teaching you a klal for Hilchos Yom Tov. You guys are going to get married and you're going to tell your wife. 1 second, the klal is as follows. Number 1, any malacha that could have been done before Yom Tov and would have achieved the same results had you done it on Yom Tov, it wouldn't have made a difference before Yom Tov or on Yom Tov, cannot be done on Yom Tov. Okay? Another thing is a malacha that's done on a large scale is also asa to be done even on a small scale in that case. So those are the general halachas in that case. Let me give you some examples, halacha la maisa. I'll just give you one tiny example, then we'll move on. Peeling, right? So peeling we know is an issa. Right, you have to, generally it's a shayla of boira, because you're taking off the peel of something, which is taking the psoiles off of the oichel. Now we know there are certain times, the Ramon Shen Chavalav, that you're allowed to peel on Shabbos. For example, you're allowed to peel a banana or peel an egg, because it's the only way of getting inside. But let's say, for example, it's a cucumber, it's an apple, or something like that. I can eat the apple or the cucumber without peeling it. I can cut it in half, I can figure it a mahalach. I don't have to peel it in order to eat it. So on Shabbos, it would be also to peel. That's the pashtus, to show using a peeler. Now on Yom Tov it might be mutter. Why? Because if I peel myself a potato, which I'm allowed to cook on Yom Tov, which is a different sugya, if I peel on Erev Yom Tov, it's going to go hard. It's going to go shriveled up. It's not going to be gishmak. If I peel it and then use it and then cook it, that's going to have a much better result. So therefore I'm allowed to peel a potato on Yom Tov without any problem whatsoever. I'll give you another example. Bayra. With a peeler, yes, good question. Boyer, Rabbi say. So again, be careful. Don't think everything's mutter on Yom Tov. Yes, you're allowed to cook with an existing flame, as we will discuss. You're allowed to cook, but doesn't mean everything's mutter on Yom Tov. There's no like major rule that on Yom Tov you can do whatever you want. Absolutely not. All lamatas malachos are basically also. There are certain heterim for oichel nefesh that could not have been done before Yom Tov, and is not normally done on a large scale. Choni, you with me? Yeah? Gewaldig. Let me give you an example. Heilige boira. Right? What's not boira on Shabbos or Yom Tov? Everything's boira. From choosing your pair of socks, to your tie, to the fork, to the spoon, to the siddur, to the bone of the fish, everything is boira. So when it comes to Yom Tov, how does it work? Legabi Yom Tov. There are 3 madregas. All of this comes from Gemara Beitz Yudalet. Have a look over there. The Sugyat, Rishonim, unbelievable. There are 3 madregas of Boira on Yom Tov. Number 1, there's an Issa D'Oraisa on Yom Tov of Boira. Number 2, should have been done before, but if it wasn't, we could be Mekel. And it should be done with a Shino if you didn't do it before. And number 3, Mutter Lechatchila. So let me just go through them very, very quickly. Like I said, halavai, we can get to all Hilchos Yom Tov. But I'll just give you a couple of examples in that case. Any boira that's normally done on a large scale, for example, sifting flour. That's normally done on a large scale. That, for example, will be something that will be an issa d'oraisa for a person to sift flour on Yom Tov, even in a small scale, because it's normally done in a big scale. Whereas, let's just skip one stage and go straight to mutter lechatchila, because again, we don't have so much time. What's mutter lechatchila is something that could not have been done before Yom Tov. It's mutter lechatchila to do boira on Yom Tov. For example, I'm eating my fish. Now, I could not have separated the bones before Yom Tov. I'm eating my fish right now. I see a bone in there. I didn't see it before. I wasn't meant to look at it before. I wasn't eating it before. Mimela, I could take the bone out of the fish. Now, normally, that would be asa. On Shabbos Kodesh, a person would get skila for such a thing. When it comes to Yom Tov, as it's the easiest way, whatever, but it's the easiest way. We always go with the easiest way, the easiest method of doing it. The easiest way of separating the bone is taking out the bone. So you're allowed to do that. Or another example, using tea bags. Let's not get into Shabbos with Moshe, not with Moshe. I don't know about Shabbos. We're not discussing Shabbos Kodesh. We're discussing now Yom Tov. Now you're allowed to cook. So according to everyone, putting the tea bag into the hot water, whether it's a klivish and sheni shlishi, lech patli, doesn't make a difference, right? Because you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov. So I can put the tea bag in to make myself a tea. That's fine. I don't need to use a kli shlishi. I can use a kli rishon, a kli sheni, no problem. Now on Shabbos, shaila. According to everyone on Shabbos, to take out the tea bag and let it just sort of, sit there, that's going to be boira deraisa, because the tea bag is a kli that's miyuchat to separate the tea leaves and the liquid inside the tea leaves using the tea bag as a kli. So that's a for sure issa deraisa according to all shitas on Shabbos Kodesh. On Yom Tov, it's mutter. Why? I could not have done it before. I wanted the tea now. So if I want the tea now, you with me, Itzi? That's why I don't have a problem with doing that. So Rabbi say you can see what's going on over here when it comes to boira, right? There's a very negay. Let's say, for example, a person's eating a food and he doesn't like he's eating peas and carrots and he hates carrots. So on Shabbos to take out the carrots would be yasa. On Yom Tov over here would be mutter. The easiest way possible, whichever one is minimal work. Moving on, Rabbi said, just going to fly through a couple of halachos just to get the olim into it. Halavai, we had another time. Maybe we'll get to part B, but I don't think so. But if we do, halavai, hakol revach. Making a fire, Rabbi say. Yes, you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, we know that, right? But however, you have to use an existing flame. You cannot create a new flame on Yom Tov. You cannot strike a match, for example. Now, what do you do, Lamaisa, if you want to make open a fire? So you can open the gas, for example, on not obviously not electric, I'm talking about, one of the old gas hobs. You could open up the gas, there's no over there. You take a match, you put it into the fire. Be very careful, Rabbi say. You don't want to heat it, which Shlomo Zalman said, from the heat of the fire. You want it to light from the fire. You put the match in the fire, and this way, you're just taking from a pre-existing fire, and then you can light your gas. There will be no problem in that case. Increasing fire is also mutter. So, for example, turning the gas higher would be mutter on Yom Tov, because it's already on. You're just making it higher. To make it lower, however, by the way, this doesn't apply by an oven, because an oven could light up more coils. So when you have the oven, you turn the dial to make it a higher temperature, that can be much more of a problem because you're igniting more of the coils which the Rambam holds Lamaisa is they're making a fire because it goes red hot. So Avadi you would not be able to do that in an electric oven, but on a gas oven, for example, the old-fashioned gas ovens, I think they still have them in many places. I turn up the heat, which means that I'm allowing more gas to go in. That's not a problem to do that on Shabbos. To make it lower, however, is a big problem. If a person, first of all, to extinguish it is asa. To extinguish a fire is absolutely also, which means if you have a match that you lit in a pre-existing fire, that means to shake it would be also, obviously. A woman has to be careful when she lights candles, right? Or if you're lighting a fire, whatever it is. Hu hadin, to switch off the gas, avada would be also in that case. To lower it is a machlokes with Moshe min Chasitzkak, whatever. I'm not going into the shaila right now. It's definitely better not to lower the fire once it's on, unless the food is getting burnt and there's nothing else that you can do about it, then there's a makom to be made. By the way, there is an eitzah to put out the fire. I do suggest asking your wife before you do this one, and that is fill up a small little pot with all the way to the top with the kavana that I'm going to drink something from that water. Stump to heat it up as asa. In order to drink from it is okay. Let it bubble over. It bubbles over, it puts out the fire, it makes a big mess. That's why I said ask the wife. And then once the fire's off, you can switch off the gas. So and then obviously drink some of the water that you've heated up over there. Rabbi said tons and tons of different shaylas. Nagaya too, not right now. Hachana. Right, you guys have 2 days Yom Tov, and in Chutz La'aretz we have 2 days of Yom Tov. So the question is to be meichin one day to the other days, and Issa Da'araisa for a person to do Yom Tov, Melacha on Yom Tov for the Chol. It's a pasuk in the Torah. However, Midrabanan to prepare for one day Yom Tov to another day, which means taking out food from the freezer, setting up the table, all of these things from one day Yom Tov to another day Yom Tov is actually forbidden. However, there are certain Ateirim. Number one, riboy b'shurim. That means if you want to make an extra large salad on the first day with the intention of keeping some of it for the second day, that's okay. But to set the table on Yom Tov afternoon for that night's meal, that would be asa, because you're preparing for that night. Unless, of course, you're cleaning up because you want it clean right now, that would be okay. Al Hilchos Achana from Hilchos Shabbos also. The other heter would be is freezer, the Chayodom, that holds that if, for example, taking food out the freezer is going to cause a major delay. For example, if I take the challah out the freezer only by Yom Tov night, the second night, until it defrosts, it's going to take an hour or 2 hours. I'm going to keep the oil waiting. So the Chayodom has a special letter. He talks about it by wine. You could take it out earlier enough that it doesn't look like clearly you're doing it for that night. Could be you're doing it for that day also. Then you can take it out, and therefore it won't cause a tremendous tircha to the olam in that case. Rabbi said there are tons and tons of different shaylas. One of the shaylas, by the way, I remember I didn't mention last time, was shtar yotis. People have to know if you create a menu, right? Women, for example, create menus, especially got a 2-day Yom Tov. They create menus. What we're serving on the first day, what we're serving on the second day. Take this this out the freezer, take that in the fridge, whatever it may be. You have to be very careful. That's called shtarit yotus. You're not allowed, especially the person who's organizing the meal, to read a menu because we're worried, says the Rambam, you might come to erase it, change the menu, change the dessert. So therefore you have to ask someone else who's not involved to read the menu in that case. Rabbi said tons and tons more shilas. If we have time, we'll do a part B. If we won't, Rabbi say, open up a Shulchan Aruch and learn some Hilchos Yom Tov. Have an amazing day.